was Alien Romulus, a 2024 American science fiction horror film directed by Fede Alvarez, written by Fede Alvarez and Rodo Sayegüez. All right.
Sure.
This movie stars Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, Archie Renault, Isabella Merced, Spike Theme, and Aileen Wu. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Alien: Romulus is, while scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. What did you, Kyle, think of Alien: Romulus?
So as this movie got closer and closer, and as I saw more trailers, I started getting kind of excited for this movie.
Oh, yeah?
I was like, oh, this looks like it could actually be good.
Okay.
We're going to talk about other Alien movies, but I've been let down by the Alien franchise for, what is it, going on 30 years now? So,
okay.
Yeah. 30, 35 years or so.
Interesting. You haven't found anything redeemable in anything since what? Aliens?
Well, I mean, we'll discuss in our ranking, but yeah, definitely, there's been a huge quality drop for me since the mid '80s to where we are now in the Alien franchise. But as we got closer to this one, I was getting more and more excited for this movie, and I mean, I'll say that this movie started out really strong for me. Right away, you're in an alien or a spaceship of this world. And it's got all these like buttons and lights, and it's turning on, and you can tell like, oh, this is a set. This is not just some like CG creation. And like right away, I'm like, oh, this feels great that I'm seeing something physical, and it's got lights and buttons and knobs. And I think I just realized how much I miss seeing tactile physical things in movies, because so much is CG created and streamlined. And like, yeah, I'll just throw a bunch of stuff on the screen, whatever. And I mean, this movie starts on a planet, or I think it's a planet that is it's pretty lived in, and it's pretty terrible. Mm-hmm. And like right away, I just kind of felt like, this is a tactile world that these people are in. And like, I understood why these people would go on such a risk. They not even know what they're getting into, but like, why would they go leave what they're going to do, start on this mission? Because you realize, they have no other choice in their lives. So like right away, these characters were given motivation. They were set up as, this makes sense why they're making these choices, why they are where they are. So that was all great. Mm-hmm. And eventually, again, it's not a slow start, but this movie takes its time. Eventually, they do meet the titular alien, the xenomorph, and it starts off kind of like the first Alien movie, where you've got one alien hunting this crew. And I thought that was great. I was really into that. Then the movie kind of, and I think we can say that movie is a bit fan servicey, where it's trying to sort of do a little bit of every Alien movie, at least, of like the big run. And then they said, oh, what if we have aliens? And what if we bring in like plasma rifles? And I lost a little bit more when we got into like the other Alien style movies. But when we were kind of keeping with this core, like, crew and one alien, I thought it was like hitting on all marks for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I agree with you that the first 30 minutes or so, I was totally into it. Like the world building they were doing in this new place that seemed to fit within what we know of this world to be, especially like they say in the timeline, this falls between Alien and Aliens. And the presentation of the corporation and what they're doing to real people on a oppressive planet made sense to me, like within that timeline. And I enjoyed getting to know these characters that were much younger than any other crew, much more like misfit types. Like they weren't people that were sent on a mission. They were people who like created their own mission type of thing.
They weren't like grizzled, or they hadn't seen a lot of things. They had never seen anything but the planet they lived on.
They're not battle worn at all for the most part.
No, not at all.
They're not soldiers. They're not scientists. They're just normal people.
And they're naive. They're like, oh, we're going to go on this ship. We're going to take something. We're going to leave. Like, I think they say, oh, in and out 30 minutes.
Right.
Not even like thinking what else could be up there? Not even think about aliens, but just in general of like, what else could be on a derelict ship floating in orbit besides just the thing we need? So,
right. Yeah. So I was on board for that idea, like that setup, that this is a new group of people, one that we haven't seen before, new demo, for lack of a better term. And we're going to mix it up with the aliens and see what happens. It turns out what happens is like what happens in every alien. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't a whole lot of divergence from the formula once they get up in space. There's a little bit here and there. There's like a clear influence with like some of the alien video games that love the most popular of the recent alien video games.
Oh, like Isolation. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But the end result with one kind of major lore expanding exception, I would say.
Are you talking the very end?
Very close to the very end.
Right.
Yeah.
We're into a spoiler section, correct? We did
yes.
announce this beforehand, but we have to do one. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Right there at the very end, or close to the very end, they expand the ideas a little bit, I would say. But the question is, are you so, I don't know, kind of annoyed by the sameness by then that it matters, or is it so left field compared to the sameness they've been giving you that like you're just like, what are we doing now?
Right. Yeah.
Type of thing. Those are the big questions, just to be vague about it. I think overall is like a normal standalone, but in a bigger universe type of, I don't know, in between qual, I guess
I heard call it an interqual is
interqual.
Yeah.
It's getting ridiculous. Are there any other interquals? Like maybe Rogue One?
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Can't think of any.
Off the top of my head, no. I'm sure there's other examples of movies that take place. Well, what about no, not Solo. Are there any other like?
No, Solo. No, Solo happens before.
Yep, that's a good point.
No, Solo happens.
Well, I mean, Solo happens
between two trilogies.
So it's kind of interquel, but it's, I don't know. Rogue One feels more connected to like the actual trilogies, even though Solo's a major character in the trilogies and they do a lot of pulling in of like explanations of things. It feels more like a standalone movie, I guess. I don't know.
I think the difference would be, so if you're between Alien and Aliens, that's a part of a sequence of movies, right? A quadrilogy. So you've injected into the middle of a sequence of films, whereas Rogue One is between episode 3 and episode 4, which is two separate trilogies.
Yes, right.
So I think an interquel needs to be in the middle of a sequence of
a sequence, okay.
Even if it's a bigger one. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. I don't know what the answer is.
And I know I just said like, oh, Solo is a standalone movie. That doesn't count. But this movie is kind of a standalone too.
Yeah.
It sort of feels like tangential to the Alien storyline, which I appreciated. Like, I don't want to get into spoilers, but I didn't feel like there was anything, they're saying, and that's how the Queen got into there in Aliens. Like they weren't trying to explain things or set something up. It really was another story within this universe that's connected to the greater thing.
Yeah, that kind of annoyed me too, though, because it
really,
I kind of felt like the movie didn't pick a lane. It was like, hey, we're going to make a bunch of references that'll make you really happy, but none of them will be of consequence. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to build on the lore of any of these things you like. In fact, we're going to repeat lines ad nauseum, even though those characters weren't there the first time it was said.
The line repeating got to me, and especially there's one said towards the end.
It doesn't even make logical sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So, right. If I had one big issue with this movie, and I will say I like this movie, it was just sort of, it felt like a lot of times the greatest hits.
Right.
And like, oh, we'll give you some plasma rifles, and we'll give you this, and we'll give you an alien, we'll give you aliens, we'll give you face huggers, and and that's fun. And I enjoyed seeing all of that. But you're right. At the same time, like, you're not giving me anything new within this universe.
Right.
Though, I mean, at the same time, the previous movies that try to give me new stuff, I didn't care for whatsoever. So, like, I think I'm fickle. Like, well, I want something new, but not that kind of new. I don't want too much new. Yeah.
That makes sense. The movie that I would compare this to that I think did it better because it picked a lane
Right.
is Prey, the Predator prequel.
Oh, Prey is a much better movie that's similar in flavor to this. Yeah.
Prey was like, we're going to show you the origin of predators landing on Earth, but we're not going to tease you with a bunch of stuff, a bunch of references to the future type of thing. We're going to give you a brand new environment, a brand new set of protagonists, and we're gonna show you an early version of Predator that's, you know, you can see a progression from that Predator to what happens in later movies, but that's it. Like, we're not going to give you lore that links into what happens in the future or anything like that. We're not going to tease that at all. We're not even going to play with it. We're just going to give you a self-contained story that happens to happen at this one historic moment. I kind of feel like this one was like, we're just going to interrupt the timeline here and show you this little side story, and we're going to pack it with a bunch of references that don't make any, you know, difference in the end.
Right.
And also, we could have not told you this story at all, and it makes no difference to the bigger plot of the films.
No, correct. Yeah. This has no weight to what's happening in the Alien universe. It really is just a little side story, a side quest.
So short of like a few alien, if you're not into the fan service, short of a slight horror, you know, element, slight horror. It's a horror movie, but short of like aliens being scary and maybe giving you a little buzz, a little thrill here and there. What is there? Like, why does this movie exist? Is it just a funhouse movie? Just because they want to remind everybody that aliens can be scary? I left the movie feeling like, okay, that felt like not necessarily a waste of my time, because I got a little buzz here and there. It had scary moments. But at the same time, I was like, so we're just going to make movies that have no consequence in the bigger story now? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mind that it was inconsequential to the bigger story. Like, I don't need every movie of a series to be pushing the ball forward, per se. I do think I did mind the fact that this movie didn't feel very original. Like, it was done well. I mean, I will say this movie looks great. Like, the creature effects are a lot more practical. Obviously, there's CG effects in this movie. You don't make movies without CG, especially in space. So there's clearly CG in this, but there's also like a lot of physical face huggers and aliens and like tactile things that you're looking at. I keep saying that word tactile, but I miss it. I miss it, James.
I did appreciate the amount of practical effects that were clear in this film. There's a lot of marketing about how it's awesome that Aliens is going back to practical effects. And I was like, did you watch the same movie I did? Like, there were practical effects in here, but there were twice, if not much more, digital effects going on in here.
Yeah. Yes.
And those looked good too, but we've talked about practical effects versus digital. We don't have to go back into it deep, but felt a little silly for people to be like, yay, Aliens is back. No more digital aliens. I was like, it's digital aliens through the whole movie.
Yeah, there's definitely digital aliens in this. Yeah. So, I mean, this movie did give us a weightless scene, which I don't think we've had in an alien movie before. That was new.
I mean, it was new. I agree. Yeah. If that had been in the first 30 minutes, I'd give it credit. But I was kind of slightly agitated and anticipating them doing something else that by the time that came up, I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, I saw this in the trailer. Let's go. You know what I mean? Get to something of consequence, and then we'll talk about it in spoilers. But
I mean, this movie is full of Chekhov's insert here. It could be Chekhov's plasma rifle or pulse rifle, Chekhov's gravity, creator. Like, there's a bunch of things happen in the first 45 minutes that you're like, hey, remember that thing exists. And that felt a little spoon fed because you're like, okay, I'm waiting for that to come back.
Absolutely. 100%.
We can discuss this more in spoilers, but there is one major character return, I guess we can say.
Kind of.
How did that make you?
Kind of.
How did that make you feel?
How did that make me feel? I mean, is that in the trailer?
No, I had no idea that this would be happening.
I didn't either. Let's save Okay.
Okay,
we in generalities.
Yeah, in general. Yeah.
I understand why they did it, and I think there was a reason for it, but it was also another thing that like doesn't really make a big difference.
Yeah.
In the context of everything. Especially, I can't say that yet. We'll talk about it.
Okay, we'll talk about it. Yeah. I'll say when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is interesting, especially given, whatever. Spoilers. At first, I was like, oh, this is interesting choice for many reasons. And then it kept coming back, and I was like, this is silly. Like, like both looks silly and like this feels so forced. Like,
sure.
Other things were fun. I'm like, yeah, okay, we're throwing them in there because it's a reference, but that's fine. But this one thing felt super forced for multiple reasons that we'll discuss in spoilers.
Agreed.
I will say, like, I thought this one was more of a horror film than previous Alien movies that I've seen from the 21st century.
Certainly more than the prequel films, those
exactly
two prequel films. Yeah,
exactly. I was in a pretty packed theater, and there was an early jump scare. I think they were like walking through the spaceship and a dead body fell or something like that. And I see went, oh, and no one else in the theater made a single sound.
You're the only one that responded to a jump scare?
I was the only person that responded to that first jump scare. And I was like, all right, Kyle, keep it under control here. I don't want to be the guy there who's throughout the whole movie. So
sure. I was rewatching Aliens earlier today, and kind of like half working, half watching type of thing.
Right.
And the moment towards the beginning where the cat screams and you don't know there's a cat on board yet. Jump scared.
In Alien or Aliens?
In Aliens.
Oh, the second one. Is the cat back in the second one?
The cat's in the second one, yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen the second one in, I don't know, Zach and I watched it pre-pandemic, so it's been a while since I saw it.
Sure.
And it's been a while. It has been.
All right. Anything else spoiler free? Or should we jump into spoilers?
Oh, the last thing. I did like the David Johnson character of Andy.
Okay.
Who was an android, but kind of had a different journey than the ones we see in the past.
Yeah.
And that's played by David Johnson, who's in Rye Lane. Have you seen Rye Lane yet?
No, but I know you've recommended it.
Yes. I want to recommend that to everyone.
Okay.
It's like it's a comedic version of Before Sunrise.
Maybe I have.
Yeah. Or it's the rom-com version of Before Sunrise is probably the best way to put it.
RYE?
RYE. Rye Lane. Yep.
Rye Lane. Nope. It's on my watch list. Have not watched it yet. Yeah, I agree. He was probably the best part of the movie. Kaylee Spaney was fine. I think she did what they needed her to do. But
yeah, she was. Yeah.
But he was like a notch above, I would say. And honestly, after rewatching a bunch of Alien films within the last week, the androids or synthetics, whatever you want to call them, are by far the most interesting characters in all these movies.
Yeah.
For some reason, like I can get invested in Sigourney Weaver's character because there's like a legacy there. And like I care about that character and what happens to her. But short of her, they haven't made me care about any character in these movies. No. Except for maybe Elizabeth from the first one.
And then with
Prometheus, rather.
Oh, Prometheus. Oh, yeah. Oh, the Noomi Rapace character. Yeah.
Right.
And with the synthetics, you always are wondering, like, who do they serve? Do they serve a corporation? Do they serve the crew? Are they serving themselves? Like, and they often seem to be trying to figure out who they are. Yeah, they're the most interesting idea. And I mean, it's very much, I don't know. Like, I wonder if Ridley Scott took the idea. I know that he didn't write Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
So let's back it up. I wonder if he took the ideas from the Blade Runner book, whatever. Do Androids Dream of Robotic Sheep? Yeah, Electric Sheep. Thank you. Kind of took that in Alien, and then was able to then expand upon it when he made the actual movie. So, because I would say this world felt kind of like a Blade Runner world at the very beginning. The planet they were on, it was raining all the time. It was always dark. It was sort of this industrial dystopia.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I agree. All right, let's letterbox rate Alien: Romulus. What are you going to give it out of 5 stars, Kyle?
You know, when this movie started, I was like, "Well, I'm feeling 4 stars right now," but it dropped to 3.5. So we're gonna keep it at 3.5. But it started really strong.
Interesting. I wrote down 3 stars. That feels harsh, but I'm gonna keep it for now.
Okay.
3 stars for Alien: Romulus. This is spoilers for Alien: Romulus. If you haven't seen Alien: Romulus and you want to stay spoiler free, you should not listen to this. You should listen to something else and just hit pause, go see it, come back. If you have seen it or you don't care about spoilers, then listen on, because we're going to talk openly and honestly. At least I am. I can't vouch for you, but I will be honest about my opinion on Alien: Romulus.
Ooh, we're gonna play a fun game. I'm gonna be dishonest at times. You need to figure out, when am I lying?
What a fun game. Okay, so what do we need to spoil about Alien: Romulus?
I think there's 2 major things that can be spoiled.
Okay.
And number 1, we are kind of dancing around it, is the return of Ash.
Right. The synthetic from the original 1979 Alien film.
Who was played by Ian Holm originally, and he passed away in the last several years.
Right.
Last couple of years, probably.
Yeah, so this is a digital version of him on screen.
Right. They've Graham off targeted him. Yes.
Right.
And it kind of works because he is a synthetic. So like he has a rubbery look to him, being that this is I'm sure an AI assisted character they've created.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, these synthetics have always been played by actual people, so they don't look rubbery.
Sure.
So for me, I mean, just visually, it had this weird uncanny valleyness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was, I mean, obviously it's young Ian Holm's face.
Mm-hmm.
He's very dead, right? So they're not even using like the old actor and then de-aging him. They're using, another actor and then pasting over it. I don't know what the state of Ian Holm's estate is, but I'm assuming they gave permission to do this.
I think they'd have to, unless he signed something.
I would assume they did, but it's also kind of like this Brave New World situation of like, I don't want to keep seeing dead actors coming back in movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I do not want to see that.
No, I mean there's in the Alien movies, I guess Prometheus has 2 Davids, or Alien Covenant does, but in any other Alien movies, have we seen multiple synthetics that look the same, or is this like the first time that we've had multiple Ashes or multiple of any synthetics?
So if you look at the timeline and the order of release, this would be the first time you've seen a multiple Ash, but they've already set up the fact that you can have multiple synthetics that look exactly the same, because they did it with David.
They did it with David, right?
Right. They did it with David. So it would have been more of a surprise if they hadn't already done it with David.
Right.
But I think the reason why they made it Ash and not like somebody new, just had a new synthetic, was to link it to the first movie, to like try to get people to understand that this is between the first and the second type of thing. Which I guess, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I
that
didn't
movie's
mind
so old. Like how many
Alien?
people?
Yeah.
How many people? I mean, the audience that I watched it in were like 2 camps: people my age and people younger. There wasn't much older, I would say. And I was 2 when this movie came out. I think most of the people who like saw Alien in the theater, they've aged out of this series a long time ago. For the most part, they might watch it, but they're watching it at home. They're not going to a movie theater.
They're not excited to see. Right, it was definitely a younger crowd. I was on the upper end of age at my crowd also. So
absolutely,
yeah.
And so I think to give young people the benefit of the doubt, maybe they know who Ash is, but I don't think they care. I don't think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It just seems so odd because Ian Holm's dead. 2 or C, B, whatever. 3. In Alien, they don't know that Ash is a synthetic until the very end, right?
Yeah, I mean, close to the end.
Yeah, it's not until like Sigourney Weaver attacks him and his head kind of falls off as she realizes that, and that's a reveal for all of us.
Right.
So it just seems odd that this company would be creating multiple synthetics that are secret synthetics, but then also look the same. Because people might catch on pretty quickly, like, hey, I've seen that guy before.
Yeah, but I mean, I literally just watched Alien yesterday, but I don't remember if the characters in that movie know what a synthetic is and is just surprised that Ash is one, or if they're surprised because they didn't even realize robots could look like that.
I think it's the former. I think they know synthetics exist in their world,
but
they just didn't know Ash was one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he had to be there because these movies always have the company somehow involved, Weyland-Yutani, right? And these people are not, I mean, they work for Weyland-Yutani, but they're not really connected to it. So I guess you needed like a representative to be there if you're trying to make an alien movie that's like all the other alien movies. So you need something to connect the company to it, and he was that connection, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And that was one of those where I'm just like, it made my eyes roll a little bit. I thought the effect was good, to be honest.
I disagree.
I thought if you're going to bring a guy back, you can make him a glitched out robot and it doesn't matter if it's flawless, in my opinion. So it worked for me, but I understand if people weren't vibing with the effect itself.
Yeah.
How do you feel about just dead digital actors?
I mean, I think overall I'm anti, like even if they give the permission to do it, just because it feels forced and it feels callbacky. Like the only reason you use a dead digital actor is because you're trying to like do a fan service, a callback, like, hey, remember this person? So I don't care for it. I know James Earl Jones, he's still alive, but he's already like signed away his voice rights after he passes away. And like, I don't know if I want to hear James Earl Jones' voice in 20 years in a movie.
Yeah, I disagree with everything you just said.
Really? Okay.
I think so. Using somebody's likeness when they weren't 100% on board with it when they were alive, I don't agree with. But
kind of like Grand Moff Tarkin. I'm sure whoever the actor's name is, Peter Cushing, probably had no idea that he was going to be digitized and
I mean,
created down the road. Yeah.
Even if your family after death approves it, it still feels kind of gross if the actual person didn't approve it.
Yes.
Type of thing.
Right.
But if the actual person approved it and took a paycheck for it, then like, I don't really have a problem with that. I agree that the way it's been used so far is not necessarily to fill in gaps or to expand the storyline of that particular character. It's been used as a gimmick most of the time.
Yes.
So I don't like that. But if there was a world where the original cast of Star Wars 1977 was all passed away and we got another movie where those characters are indistinguishable in my brain to the actual live counterparts, and we got a full story in that world, in that environment, it was well written, not gimmicky, made sense, I'm down. As long as everybody agreed to be in that, I'm down 100%. I mean, you could use AI, just feed a bunch of John Williams scores and an AI generator, get new music for it. I don't care. As long as you're doing it for legitimate creative reasons and not economic or fan servicey reasons.
But I mean, but right now, like you said, it's all been for economic fan servicey reasons.
Right.
And I mean, this is a personal thing. It's one thing to be an actor who's alive and you choose your roles and someone passes you a script and you read that script, you're like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that or whatever. Like when you're alive, you have autonomy and choices. Obviously, in powerful industries, people have done things they don't want to do because of money and lack of power. But that's another issue. Overall, you have the ability to say no. Once you're dead, yeah, you may have signed away your rights and you may have gotten a paycheck for that, but you can't say no to anything.
Sure.
And at that point, like anyone could do, I mean, anyone who has that right, who's in that studio, could do anything with your likeness, with your voice. People may not like it, but they can be like, yeah, we'll have James Earl Jones up there singing Britney Spears. Why not? You would do that.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. The hypothetical makes sense. But also like I don't know. You're right, but also you're dead. Like What does it matter? You know
I
what
mean,
I mean?
I don't know. I think legacy is what matters.
I guess.
It's one thing to say, like, in my lifetime, again, I'm not a famous person. I'm not going to have a huge legacy outside my family. That's fine.
Sure.
But, it's one thing to say, like, yes, my legacy is I was in these movies and these are my performances and this is what I'm known for. And then, I don't know, in 50 years, you could be known for the guy who's selling vacuum cleaners, Fred Astaire,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I agree, but he'll never know that his legacy was tarnished.
Yeah, but everyone else, when I don't know if that's a bad example, but like I think a lot of people, especially my age, when they think of Fred Astaire, they're thinking the vacuum cleaner commercial, and not like
Sure.
the dancing actor who had a huge career in like the 40s and 50s.
No, I understand how that could change a perception of somebody's, talents or why they're famous, whatever. And also Fred Astaire does not give a crap right now about that. You know what I mean? Only the people who are living and breathing care about his legacy.
Yeah.
So the question is, why do we care? I think there's a legitimate reason to care because he came before things that I love, right? Without Fred Astaire, there's lots of things that I love that would have never happened within the context of film and acting. And so there's something to being respectful to what came before, certainly. But also, he's dead. Who cares?
He's push up daisies.
I don't know.
All right.
Anyway, anything else to spoil about Alien Romulus?
I think there's one more thing.
Okay, let's hear it.
So this movie also has the alien trope where you think the characters are safe. You think they've defeated the alien. That sequence was really cool, like when it's crashing into the asteroid belt, or it's like a ring of Saturn style belt. Like I thought that looked really cool. I kind of like that this movie had a clock. It felt a little weird that they were like halfway through the movie, they said, "Oh, we're gonna crash in 40 minutes." I was like, "This is a real-time movie now?"
40 minutes? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, could we have said like 3 hours maybe? That would have felt a little bit more realistic. Because like once you say 40 minutes, I'm trying to think like, well, 40 minutes is not a lot of time.
I can run to the restroom.
Yeah, right. No, but also like, let me tell you, what if I said, all right, I'm gonna give you a task in an unknown space, like an unknown room, and you have 40 minutes to figure it out. Good luck. Like 40 minutes is not a lot of time. So
sure.
I think that felt a little unrealistic. I wish they said a couple hours because I would believe that more. But anyway, I like that this movie had a clock, as in the fact of like something we have to figure this problem out or else we die, either from the problem or because of this other thing that's happening. Anyway, spoiler alert, they figure the problem out. They get on their ship. They think they're all safe. But we can't forget about Chekhov's pregnant lady from the beginning of the movie.
I didn't fully understand. So she was pregnant, right?
She was pregnant,
from like a normal human pregnant.
Right. Yeah. It was just a normal pregnancy.
And then she comes in contact with black goo, or like, how did she get pregnant?
Remember, she injects herself with the goo.
Why?
Because so Ash kind of tells them like, oh yeah, no, like this goo can save life. It can save a life. Obviously, Ash wants the goo out there in the world. Like he has his Machiavellian reasons of like,
gotcha,
let's get it out there. Kind of like David and Prometheus or whatever. So, and then like David Johnson is about to inject her. Then Kaylee Spaney is like, what? I don't trust. Let's not do this. Right. But later, when this pregnant woman who's kind of dying is alone, she decides to inject herself with it because she thinks, oh, this is a miracle cure that's going to make me all better. In fact, she has births an alien human baby hybrid. And one of many birth scenes in this movie. Like, obviously, the Alien franchise is very much known for its phallic imagery. But this one is known for its, I guess I'm just going to say its vaginal imagery.
Absolutely.
All over this movie. All over it.
It was constant.
Yes.
I was a little uncomfortable sitting in the theater. I was just like, are we all just looking at a female genitalia here together, or
have we seen? I mean, I'm not talking about the birth at the end when the alien is like in its cocoon and it kind of is birthed out. Have we seen that on screen before, or is that the first time we've seen like an alien get birthed from its growing cocoon?
I don't know. I watched the 2 prequels and Aliens 1, 2, and 3 in the last couple days. I didn't get to the 4th. It's not in any of the ones I watched.
Okay, you're right. Because like we've never seen, like we always see the face hugger, the chest burster, and then the giant, the full-size xenomorph.
Mm-hmm.
And we never see what's in between chest burster and full-size xenomorph.
I mean, we've seen the queen give birth on camera before.
We have? Okay, it's been a while, so okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've also seen the little egg-laying vacuums that come out of the queen.
Okay.
Like actually lay an egg and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen birth.
No.
Okay, well.
Not unless it happens in the 4th movie.
This movie gave us birth multiple times.
For sure.
Anyway, so she injects herself with the black goo.
Mm-hmm.
And she ends up birthing a xenomorph human hybrid, which then grows into this like 10-foot monster that Kaylee Spaney has to fight one last time.
Right.
And yeah, that was different.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're still giving the formula of like, oh, you think everything's fine, and there's one more time we have to fight the alien. But in this case, it's kind of a new alien. It seemed like the entire thing was digital. I don't think there's anything practical with that, unless they built like a giant puppet at some point.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I mean, I think that, and it's not just this movie. Oftentimes when movies try and do humanoid-looking aliens, like, oh, it's human, but its face is longer, its skin is smoother. They all kind of look bad and the same.
Mm-hmm.
And like this one didn't look distinguishable. It looked upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't like, it's not as iconic as the xenomorph. Like it wasn't like, oh, that's a cool creation. It was more like, oh, that's just a tall, lanky human. I don't care for that.
Yeah.
It was Slender Man.
It was disturbing.
Yeah.
And not in like a frightening way, more in like a nightmare fuel kind of way.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas like I've never been, I've never had like nightmare fuel vibes from any alien in the series, like any specific alien. But that doesn't mean I don't, get a charge out of the movies and are frightened for characters I care about in the situation that the movie's putting them in. I felt that at times in this one. The moment with the weird white half, human, half alien was not a moment where I was scared for the people that I'm supposed to care about. It was a moment where I was like, what am I watching? Like, where is this series going? Why is this in the middle of like 2 very normal alien movies? Now you have this middle one that exists in the middle that's like not consequential, evidently, because we never see an alien human hybrid again. Like this is the one that gets ejected out of the cargo bay for like the 3rd time in 3 movies as far as the timeline goes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Always a cargo bay. Yeah.
Yeah, it very much felt, and I like this movie, but when Disney took over and did like the first Star Wars movie and they basically remade A New Hope.
You're right, yes.
The cargo ejection felt like re-destroying the Death Star again.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
one more
the
time.
Same setup. Right. Yep. And like at least in Alien, she's fighting the alien. You think she's destroyed this thing. You think she's safe, and you're like, no, this thing is unkillable because it's like a serial killer, right? It's the slasher. You can't destroy it. In this case, she defeated the alien.
Mm-hmm.
And then a new thing came along. And like, are we now fighting the alien? Or are we now fighting like this alien DNA goo? Because like I guess the lore is the xenomorph is and this is explained in Covenant, the xenomorph is like a byproduct of this goo that breeds with other beings, right? So that's why in Prometheus and Covenant we get alien-like creatures, but we never get the actual xenomorph.
Sure.
I don't know. It just it felt like, oh, we have a new threat, which is less interesting, doesn't look as cool, and is a retread of things we've seen already.
All right.
Yeah,
definitely. The keggy in YouTube chat just reminded me of something we definitely need to go back to, and that's at the bottom of the elevator shaft when the synthetic character saves the Kaylee Spaney character, and then he steps on the alien and says, "Get your hands off her," a curse word, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make
First of all, that character is back to like his sheepish ways. You know what I mean? He's not the mean guy. He could barely get a sentence out before, and now he's like a tough guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just...
It's this callback line. Obviously, he would not know this line because it's from Aliens anyway, right? Isn't that line from Aliens, which takes place after this movie?
100%.
Yeah. Like, logically, it makes no sense. In the movie, it makes no sense because it's just like a callback line. Does he know that, and then Sigourney Weaver says it with that swear word because it's like the queen.
Right.
So, she's using a very female-driven swear word.
Right. Exactly.
And in this case, it's just he just happens to say it.
Right. Yeah. And that was like my biggest issue with like all the references that were there but had no consequence. It's like I wasn't mad at the movie or really even that annoyed with it when they're doing the guns and the hallway that comes out of nowhere with like all the cocoons, which didn't make a whole lot of sense because you do that in a place where you lay eggs. And they weren't laying eggs on the path. So like
I thought the cocoons is where, again, you've seen these more often than I have. I thought that's where like the alien stores all its victims that it's going to eat for later. Does it also lay eggs there too?
Yeah.
In the other, okay. All right, I missed that.
From my memory.
Cool.
And so, yeah, there's just a bunch of references that don't make a whole lot of sense, but they were passable until that moment. That was when I was like, okay. What are we doing?
It was a bridge too far.
This is you've just made it very clear why this movie exists. And unless you're going to expand the canon through the rest of the movie, you're going to have to change my mind some other way. And I guess they thought they were doing that with the human xenomorph hybrid. And maybe they were, but I was just like not on board for it. I was just like,
no.
I was annoyed enough at that point that they were going to have to pull out something big. And then they tried. And I was just like, okay.
See, I mean, this is the situation where we said we want something different, and then they do different. We're like, well, I don't want that different. That's not the kind of different I wanted.
I think my issue was they didn't earn the different, right? I felt like in the first half hour when you're getting all the colony and all like the expanded world building and this new environment, new characters, new demo, all the things we talked about in the non-spoiler chat, I was on board for an adventure with those people that I had never seen before. And instead, they make this transition to an environment and storytelling elements, visual cues, literal lines, bringing back old actors, all that stuff. They brought it back, I guess, to make the payoff worth it of this xenomorph human hybrid. And I was just like, okay, the calculation just didn't work for me.
Right. Like, this is what we're adding up to.
Right.
I had a problem with the title of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Being Alien Romulus.
I don't really understand it. Can you?
I don't understand it because the space station they're on is called, the space station is called something else. I can't remember what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has two halves, Romulus and Remus, from the Greek and raised by wolves and everything.
Right. And one of them kills the other, right? In the original.
Does Romulus kill Remus or vice versa?
I believe so. Or the other way. I don't remember.
Right. But that doesn't play in. It's not like you have people trapped in both sides and they have to like make decisions. I don't understand the Romulus Remus connection.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So
because there was no like mirror image or brother.
Right.
I mean, there was a brother-sister relationship, but it's not the same as the myth.
No, and they're not. I mean, well, I guess we can get into it. It's the sister feels the same way about the brother the entire time. It's the brother who
changes.
Again, not an actual brother. He's synthetic. His programming gets changed. He becomes the more ruthless of the two.
Sure.
But it never goes there where like he actually decides to kill her or she has to kill him. Like, in the end, they're back to who they were. And now they like each other even more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. For after show listeners, if you listened to last week, that discussion we had in the after show last week fits perfectly into some of the themes in this movie and in Aliens in general, just by happenstance. That certainly wasn't planned. But in this movie, she genuinely loves her brother, who's not human at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else?
Yeah, the last question I had.
Okay. Hit me.
So the whole thing that kicks this movie off is these young people. They want to leave their planet.
Mhm.
They want to go to a new one that's 9 years of travel away,
Mhm.
and they need cryopods, right?
Right.
So, and they can't leave the planet because they don't have enough work hours, whatever,
Mhm.
the evil corporation. So they hop in a ship that just takes off. Like, well, so they could just leave? Like,
well, I think they threw in that little wrinkle that like they didn't have enough
like
energy
supplies
to go into like a cryostasis long enough to get to where they wanted to be.
right. Well, they needed the cryopods in the first place. They had nothing on that ship.
Right. Then they get the
But
pods and they realize they don't have enough to go where they want to go.
right. But this is just a world where like Weyland Yutani just lets people take off and leave, because that ship was like parked in the middle of nowhere. Like it seemed like they were living in their ship and then just took off and went up to the went up into the orbit.
Right.
I found that it was odd that like, it was so easy for them to physically get off the planet.
Sure. Yeah. There were definitely some logic issues, and that's fine. Like movies can have
It's fine.
little logic issues here and there. And again, I didn't hate this movie. I thought like as just a fun house, haunted house type movie, of which a lot of these aliens movies are just that at its core,
Yeah.
with like a sci-fi wrapper. It was fine, maybe a little better than average, just because I was legitimately into it at times from that perspective. It's more just the lore building, the world building, the new consequence for films after that I felt they kind of dropped the ball on, and the annoying fan servicey stuff.
Yeah, I think for me the fan servicey got to be the most, because it just felt like retreads after a while, or we have to play the hits.
Right.
And some of the hits I really like, and other of the hits I'm like, okay, we're just doing this because we have to.
What anything else for Alien Romulus? Alien : Romulus, sorry.
I think that's all I got.
I think that's all I got too. Before we go, are you gonna watch Alien : Earth? Have you heard of this?
No, I've not heard of this.
It's a sci-fi TV show set in the Alien universe, live action.
Okay.
Coming out on Hulu.
I mean, I'll probably start it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I can commit to all 4 to 18 episodes they're going to make of it, but
when I first heard about it, I thought, there's no chance they're going to make anything like really worth anything. But then I found out that Noah Hawley is writing it. Noah Hawley, who wrote the Fargo anthology series that I love. Like there's one bad season out of 5 for that, and they change the cast every season for that because it's an anthology show. And then he also wrote Legion, which is like an X-Men TV show that nobody knew was about the X-Men. That was awesome. It like didn't fit in any other universe. It was very twisty and like mind-bendy.
Dan Stevens, right? He's in Legion. Yes, I heard of that. Okay.
Legion was great as well. And so with those two under his belt, I don't know. I don't want Alien Earth to be like as esoteric as Legion, certainly. But if he can world build like he does in Fargo in this universe, I am way more pumped than I was like a minute before I read that he was involved.
Right.
For sure. I'm down for giving it a full season, and we'll see if it goes anywhere. Definitely.
I gotta say, and this is kind of along the same lines you mentioned Hulu. Mm-hmm. Now that Disney has sort of incorporated the Hulu content into Disney Plus, today my son and I went to we're gonna watch The Simpsons on Disney Plus. So I open up Disney Plus, I go to my account because like his is the kids account, so we can't watch like Deadpool and things. I go to mine, and then splash on the screen is like Aliens, watch it now, with like the Xenomorph head right there. And he's fine with that stuff. Like that doesn't really scare him or bother him. So he's like, can we watch Aliens? Like, no, we're not gonna watch Aliens. But it's so jarring to me now to like open up the Disney app and then get Aliens on the front, and then like the next one is a poster for Alien Romulus with a face hugger on there, and just like I just want to know how many parents have like told their kid, yeah, go on Disney Plus and watch something. And the kid just, like some 5-year-old opens it up and gets an alien splash screen right in front of their face.
Yeah, that's interesting that they don't restrict the static graphics as well.
Well, I'm sure on his account, they probably don't give him that.
Oh, okay. This was on your account.
This is my account, but it's just jarring in general to see like that on Disney Plus.
Sure.
So,
yeah. I mean, I think you're going to see more of that because I think they figured out that like adults can only watch so much Marvel TV and so much Star Wars TV. They need to like start leveraging these 20th Century Fox properties.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yeah. I'm sure Hulu will be gone in the next year or two.
It's crazy that they've owned 20th Century Fox for 5 years now.
It was 5 years.
5 years they've owned it, and they haven't done more with these properties yet. Like,
I mean, yeah, this is the first Deadpool movie, right?
That Deadpool was the first MCU movie. This is the first Alien movie. They haven't done another. Have they done another Terminator? Was there another Terminator between now and then? No, I think the last one was 2019.
It was a Genesis or something, right?
No, it was whatever.
Dark World.
Dark Fate.
Dark Fate. Thank you.
Dark Fate. Yeah. Dumb.
What's the other big 20th century? I mean,
Avatar, which was going to happen whether they bought it or not.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. This and Deadpool and Wolverine, I think, are the two biggest ones that I can think of that like they've actually picked up the ball from 20th century and like developed their own thing.
Right, because they've owned Star Wars for a while, so they kind of already took that off 20th Century's plate.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Are we changing our rankings at all? Our letterbox rating?
No, I wanted to give this a 4. I wanted to really like this movie, and I enjoyed it, but it's too much at times.
For sure.
Stick with my 3.5.